Good evening, everyone. My name is Helen Zhen, and I'm the professional developer working at the Lemelson-MIT Program. Thanks a lot for your interest in the webinar this evening. I'm very happy to see some old friends and also new friends here, so welcome you all. As a lot of you are aware of, since last October, we have been offering these free webinars once every 2 weeks talking about invention education. This week, we'll talk about how to showcase invention, and in 2 weeks, we will host our very last seminar of this academic year, and the topic is about 3D printing and CAD tools. All of our previous webinars have been recorded. You will find the recorded webinars and the slides on our website. After this webinar, we will send out the email about how to register the next webinar. So please keep an eye on that. For today's webinar, we have set up a chat window for you to post your questions. At the end of the presentation, we'll have about 5 minutes to answer your questions. You don't need to turn on the microphone on your computer. And also, don't wait until we finish our presentation to post your questions. You can post your question at any time during the presentation. We'll get back to you. Okay, let's get started. First, a brief introduction about the program. Our program, the Lemelson-MIT Program, is a multi-faceted program for inventors at all ages. Our education program has over 15 years working with high school and middle school teachers and students through our 2 grants initiative. Our high school InvenTeams have been awarded with 7 US patents, and a lot of them are in the process of applying for that. And many of our students have presented their work, showcase about their inventions in all kinds of science fair, design conventions, or maker fair, all kinds of these conferences. So this evening, I'm very lucky to invite Ed Hernandez to share his experience of showcasing inventions. And a brief introduction of Ed. Ed is an engineering teacher at Tustin High School. He directs the T-Tech Academy of Technology and Engineering at his school, and in 2015, Ed was awarded the CTE Teacher of the Year of California.
Hi all.
So welcome, Ed. I know he also last year, Ed specifically led the Tustin High School InvenTeam. Together, his team invented a device to remove gum from the school floors and school sidewalks. And right now, I believe, Ed, your team is working with lawyers trying
Not
to
quite yet.
patent
We're working on version number
right?
2, and depending on how well this thing turns out, that should be the next step.
Oh, kids will be so excited about that. Yeah. Okay, great. So welcome, Ed. Before we dive more deeply into showcasing invention, I just want to briefly review what is an invention and why we need to showcase inventions. Some of you might have already known that our group focuses on technical inventions, and we believe that invention needs to have 3 distinct characteristics: useful, unique, and reduced to practice. And here on the right side, you will see this the 4 different phases we observed kids got involved during invention. And we want to point out that specifically the community, getting the community involved and interacting with the community is the most critical part in the invention process. This will ensure that students will work on a useful and unique invention, and at the same time, this will also keep the community involved. So one major way to interact with the community or to keep the community involved is through showcasing students' inventions. This typically happens at the very last phases of the invention, that is about designing, building, or testing, because often students want to showcase their prototype design so that they can get more targeted feedback from the audience. And also the audience will often give students the feedback, will also inform students' steps in the next phase of the design. At the same time, it's important that community can also benefit from this showcase, because then they get a chance to know more about what the kids are working on, and often this community members, they want to know more know more about students' work, and they will lead into a sustainable support to students' projects. So overall, we feel that showcasing invention is a very powerful way to engage the community, and it can ensure that students will be motivated and make sure that they will achieve successful invention. Okay, we just talked about the benefits of showcase. Then where can you showcase students' inventions? There are lots of occasions. For example, science fair, parents' night, and community day, and local libraries, local colleges, they might organize this kind of events or maker fairs. These are all the great occasions where students can showcase their projects and get feedback from the audience. And sometimes you might feel, oh, all of this, what kind of, none of this occasion is close to me. What can we do about it? Then just go ahead and organize one. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to organize a showcase at the later part of the presentation. Now I see someone just raised their hand. I was just going to see if you know or you have showcased your students' work to the community. Please type in the chat window, and we would love to incorporate your experience in our final slides so that more teachers can learn from you. So next, Ed, I know your students showcase their inventions a lot, many times at many occasions. Can you tell us exactly how students can showcase?
Sure, and welcome everybody. One of the things that I've always told folks is if nobody knows what you're doing, then it really didn't exist. So you could be doing the greatest things in the classroom, but if you don't showcase it, if you don't present it, if you don't get the community involved, whether it be parents, administrators, district administrators, or local administrators, then you're really doing yourself a disservice. I found that out the hard way. If you don't really tell people what you're doing, it's not going to be the same thing. So we've done, gosh, almost all of the ones that were in that previous slide. And as a matter of fact, today we have open house at school, and it's at that point it almost becomes automatic. You select a bunch of students to kind of give an update on where things are, what they're working on, and gosh, and each one of the other events, whether it be a maker fair or a science fair, some sort of showcase, it requires specific things, but any of them are going to be effective so long as you get the word out. Did you? No, go ahead.
I didn't want to talk about
So, in regards to
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, in this particular slide you got here, where it says on how to showcase and present inventions, one of the things that you really have to address is who is the beneficiary, and what it says, who is the invention for, and bring those people into the presentation. For our particular project, the one for the InvenTeam, it was meant to be to help out custodians, help out administrators, basically clean up the school. So anybody and everybody that's involved in that, we wanted to make sure that they were here. There's a lot of research that also needs to be involved if you wanted to do this right, because as it says in the slide, how is a problem currently solved? If you don't know what solutions are out there, it's going to be kind of tough to improve upon something, right? So that's also part of what you have to do. We have to do a little bit of research, and I think, okay, so I went ahead and moved to the next one, Helen. Traditional presentation boards. This is kind of what everybody is familiar with, traditional science fairs, and these work great. They're easy, they're cheap, and you can go ahead and customize them almost, as much as you want. But really, pictures are probably the most important part. One of the things that I would recommend is whatever activity you're doing, make sure you take tons of pictures. You could always erase pictures. It's tough to create new ones when the event is already passed. So that by far is the biggest one. I also have my students share all of their pictures. So they take some of their own, and we have a shared Google Drive that everybody puts the pictures into, and then we can sort through those to include in our presentation. any good engineering program or technical program of sorts is going to have engineering notebooks, and you want to make sure that you take pictures of those sketches as well to kind of show the progression from idea to final product. And as I mentioned on here, pictures, it'd be great if you could have pictures of beginning, middle, and end. If you saw the beginning of what our project looked like and then compared it to the one we took to MIT, I mean, it is night and day. And that's something that's really nice to see, because other folks are going to say, oh, well, they didn't start off with a final product. It did take a while. And there's a note at the bottom of the slide as well. For those that are going on to the InvenTeam process, our midterm technical review is kind of your first step into talking to the community, bringing in your colleagues and family members, etc. So for that sort of thing, the trifolds are great. But for the final Lemelson-MIT presentation at EurekaFest, you do want to kind of step it up and do some professional prints at your local print shop. Do you have anything to add to that, Helen? Okay. I think the most powerful thing that we've done with our particular projects is a video. And I started doing this about 3 years ago. And obviously, if you're going to make a video for everything, it better be good, and it really needs to be short. We found that 2 minutes is about as much as you want to have, and you can really convey quite a bit of information in those 2 minutes. I broke down what was turned out to be probably the best way to do it. 10 seconds for a team introduction, 30 seconds for the description of the problem, 40 seconds for the build history, etc., and then 40 seconds for the actual demo. If you leave it up to the students without this particular guidance, you'll get a minute and a half of funny introductions and then 30 seconds of whatever it is that they're doing. So you really have to script it for them. And speaking of script, a storyboard, if you're not familiar with what that is, they really should sketch out how those 2 minutes are going to be filled up. Have sketches, take pictures, and draw it out till you can fill it 2 minutes. They're going to find that it is really difficult to fill those 2 minutes with meaningful information. We've also found out that we probably have about, gosh, at least 3 to 4 drafts before the final revision. We also show them to the rest of the class so that everybody gets to see, who made the mistakes and who's doing things right. So one thing that I encourage you, we can't show video in this presentation here, but there's a link to one of the YouTube videos for a project that 3 of my girls did a year ago. And that is probably one of the best examples I can show you. So I really, really encourage you to see that. Like I said, it is really only 2 minutes long. And if you go to my website for the program at tustinengineering.com, you'll find a couple of other examples. The other thing that I didn't mention on there is you could also use this for social media. That's a great way to kind of share your story out without putting together slideshows and whatnot. You can reuse them over and over again. Okay. The 1 minute oral presentation. Everybody is familiar with the elevator pitches, but students are not. And students really haven't practiced, or they're not familiar with this. So gosh, this is probably one of the toughest things to do, because as people say, next to spiders and death, speaking in front of others is the most difficult thing that a human can do, right? So being able to eloquently and passionately describe your project in a 1 minute oral presentation to anybody that comes up, it's really, really tough. So something else that you want to be scripted, it'll start off being kind of reading it off, and the more they practice, the more natural it's going to feel. We probably practice, gosh, at least a dozen times before I can point to one of my students and say, hey, give me your 1 minute pitch. I wanted to make sure, of course, that the project, that all the information gets conveyed accurately, but also that they come across as a professional and represent their school well. It's one thing to practice in front of your friends. It's quite another to practice in front of a larger audience, especially with older members of the audience, family members, etc., etc. So any and all opportunities, by all means, do so. We have also, for my particular program, a booster club, and we meet once a month, and each one of those meetings, I'll have a short student presentation, and everybody has to go through one of those. It's a required part of my program. Practice, practice, practice. It's slideshow. Traditional PowerPoint is probably not used as much anymore, but there are cases if you're at a meeting, if you're presenting at a Rotary Club or a Kiwanis or anywhere else where you're looking for either funding or just trying to get the word out. Sometimes 5, 6 slides are good enough. So all of the information that you have in your trifolds, you can put into a PowerPoint presentation and use that to your same advantage. 6 to 8 slides is probably about the maximum. And once again, use a bunch of pictures. It's probably the most effective.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ed, for sharing all these great ways or great examples students can present their invention. I'm sure your students must have had
Well,
lots of
it was
fun
scary
and
at the
learned a
beginning,
lot
and
from
I'm not
this
going to
experience.
sugarcoat it. They're going to hate it at the beginning, but in the end, it pays off.
Yeah, I'm sure they must be so proud of about themselves at the end. Yeah. We just yeah, after Ed talk about all the different ways students can present work, I just want to go back a little bit talking about the idea of how you can potentially organize a showcase event. Here I'm just using our InvenTeam mid-grant tech review as an example. As Ed just mentioned in his presentation about his students' experience. You know, for people who are not familiar with the InvenTeam Grants Initiative, so all our grants recipients are asked to organize at least one showcase event during this invention project. And one of the required showcase is the mid-grant tech review, where students will seek feedback from on their very first design prototypes from the audience or even the stakeholders. And another purpose of this showcase is actually we can set up an intermediate deadline for students because when students were engaged in invention projects, often students were kept talking about their ideas, and this is a time where they have the deadline, feel that they got to have something or some prototype ideas so that they can show to the audience. So here is the planning checklist. I won't go through all the list, but the first thing, obviously, you need to find a place where you can reserve for at least an hour. Typically, we recommend at least 2 hours. And you will make sure you will invite the audience or the guests ahead of time, and make sure that every team members know about their roles and know very well about their projects. And also, we feel it's going to be super helpful. You can find 1 or 2 student floaters actually who can help direct the guests during the event or help answer some guest questions regarding where they should go, which kind of show stations should they start with. And also, another thing we found out that if it's very important if you can design some feedback forms so that each audience, each guest, when they arrive in the room, they have that, and so that they can write down their feedbacks. Because then after this event, students can consolidate all the feedback and comments, and then students can work on a plan to how to address them and also how to improve their design. And most importantly, practice, practice, practice. Make sure students are well prepared to present their work. And next here is just an example about how you can set up the room. Please make sure you will have a room with a big screen so that students can do the presentation. And also you will have the show stations where students can, where the audience can walk around and see students' work. And make sure students' presentations are short so that the teacher, the audience, and the students
So
can
this,
have
the three
one-to-one
pictures here
in-depth
are
discussion.
from our mid-grant review at
And
our
I
little
know your
auditorium on
student did
campus.
this mid-grant
You'll
review,
see
and also
that
you did a
actually we
fantastic
had
job
probably
at the
about half full.
EurekaFest
This is
showcase. Can
as
you tell us more
crowds
about
were
that?
trickling in. So you had set up all of the tables on one side. We had a screen that came down to do our actual PowerPoint presentation. And really towards, gosh, about half of it afterwards was questions from the audience. What is it that they learned? What were their concerns? Any and all feedback. And one thing that I can see from our pictures, we invited all of our heavy hitters from our district, not just family members, but we had our superintendent, we had our administrators, principals, assistant principals, teachers, and also at the picture at the bottom where we had a city council kind of give us a bit of an award, which is kind of neat. But that meant that folks at the city level also were aware of us, which is kind of cool.
The example about how Ed organized the showcase. On the picture on the very left side is the short presentation where students were asked to, each of the students were asked to give 1 minute talk about their invention. And then here on the
Okay,
right
I'm gonna
side,
come
the
back.
three
I'm gonna come
pictures
back
are
in.
the show stations where students set up about their each team, about their inventions. That the three shoe stations students set up to talk about, how the financial team managed to organize this invention, and also how the communication team managed this invention and all the technology part. You can see here the picture on at the very bottom here is actually, it's just very, very preliminary ideas about how students can potentially enter that, solve the problem.
Best, as you all might know, that's the actual presentation at MIT, and we see the team over in Cambridge. This was our final product. It's meant to be functional, and it was functional. There was a lot we could probably do, but this is one of those things where you do have to realize where do you stop and where do where do you draw the line, right? So we had something that was able to work, and you can I'll point a little bit here to our machine. So this is all of the electronics. You have our push button controls, our chemical delivery system, which is a stainless steel bottle, a heater that we customized, and also a 12-volt drill, and a brush. So all of these three things kind of combine to remove chewing gum, which if you have chewing gum on your campus, you know that it's insidious. It's incredibly difficult to remove. But we're able to get something that sort of worked. You heat it, you scrub it, and you spray some chemicals on it, and I'll go on to the next stain. But you see here on the left, this guy, Brian, is one of our leads, presenting what really came natural after, gosh, dozens of practices. So really at this point, every one of the team members was able to adequately answer any of the questions. And if there was something where they got stumped, someone else was there to kind of rescue them.
Wow. And I just want to emphasize, looking back into the picture about here, about the very prototype ideas where students were doing at the mid-grant review and to the final
Yeah,
products.
this is, yeah, we literally started with a cardboard tube. And when Lee Esterbrooks from Lemelson-MIT came to see us, and I thought she was going to have a heart attack when she saw that all we had was a cardboard tube and an idea. But a few months later, this is what we had, and so this was pretty cool. So it does come together towards the end, one way or another.
Yeah, this is a great experience for the kids. Thanks a lot for sharing this. And one thing we want to emphasize also, while you are showcasing the students' inventions, please make sure you try to make it become an ongoing practice to engage the whole community. There are many ways you can do that. For example, you can encourage a student to say thank you, or write follow-up thank you emails, provide updates through emails, through newsletters, or through social media posts. All these ways will all these methods will keep the community stay involved after the event, even after the invention project is done, and the community will continue work supporting the whole students or even continue to support the teacher's work. And also at the same
You'll notice.
time, go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry, that one picture at the bottom, you'll see my team with our local representative, Ms. Mimi Walters. And regardless of your political leanings, it's a great idea to invite your local congresswoman, senator, congresswoman in this case, congressperson or senator to your facility. They love going out there and meeting kids. And after you've been practicing like we have, it's incredibly rewarding to have somebody from government acknowledge all of your progress. So that one's pretty cool. The other thing I mentioned earlier is a website. If you don't already have a website for your program or InvenTeam or your club, make one up. They're super easy nowadays, and that's a great way also to kind of keep people up to speed on what's going on. I typed in the address for mine, and it's on the contact stuff later. That's also a good way to keep people up to date.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot for sharing all these great suggestions. And yeah, as we just said, please try to keep having this kind of showcasing inventions as an ongoing practice and try to get more members from the community members and also from the stakeholders, try to get them involved. This is going to be such a great experience for the teachers and also for the students. It's going to inspire more and more students to become engaged in invention projects. Okay, so next, this is just, I will go briefly the resources. These are the resources on our website. And for this, I listed at website the Tustin High School Academy of Technology and Engineering. As Ed said, there are a lot of pictures and videos on students' projects. Please feel free to go and check that out. And also another resource is the MIT course 2009. That website includes detailed information about how you can prepare for your final presentation, and also it offers a template about all this kind of a review feedbacks for you can design for the guests. So please feel free to check them out. And also our group provides mid-grant technology review guidelines and templates for feedback. So if you want to get any information on that, feel free to just contact us. We will be more than happy to email you those guidelines.